What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll take you guys through my ultimate guide to the upcoming Game Week 10. So Game Week 10 is fastly approaching. Please remember the Saturday deadline, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you guys are around the world. But if you guys do want a reminder, just make sure that your notifications are on for YouTube and Twitter, as we'll be going live on a deadline stream 1 hour before the deadline. Now this ultimate guide is going to be returned to the usual, no kind of wildcard debate about Game Week 8 verse 9. However, these talking points might be still relevant if you guys are on the chip. But a return to the kind of usual format of the stats list / watch list. We're then going to talk about the best fixtures for the next 6 game weeks, Liverpool assets, should you get them in, should you sell them, all that good stuff. And then finally we're going to talk about captaincy. There's already a big debate to go over about Mitrovic, but I've kind of extended that till the team selection because it's very team dependent. I myself might have to make that move if he's going to be out for a long amount of time. So if you guys were interested in Mitrovic replacements, just stay tuned for the team selection coming up tomorrow. But if you are interested in some of the talking points I've mentioned previously, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into them. Now the first talking point I wanted to go over is just a little bit of a reminder about the European competitions. The Conference League, the Europa League, and more importantly the Champions League will be taking place from Tuesday till Thursday. Now, although this is kind of a usual reminder, I'm recording this over on Tuesday afternoon, so there's still a lot of European competitions to kind of kick off. Now, the big talking point this week for me is going to be watching those Man City assets, Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne, because I do kind of feel if Haaland is going to be expected to play tonight, might play against Copenhagen next week as well, there could be some slight rotation or minutes managed on the weekend against Southampton at home. Now, don't you think that's going to happen? I think that Haaland should probably play 90 minutes and hopefully KDB as well on the weekend, but still something to keep in the back of your mind if you guys are going to be watching the games tonight. Other than that though, just make sure that you guys are watching out for injury news, also kind of minutes maybe, as there might be some rotation in the Prem for Game Week 10. But now go on to the first big kind of talking point or usual talking point of the ultimate guide. It's going to be our stats list / our watch list. So I'll still be keeping it kind of team dependent, as I do kind of feel like the team stats are slightly better than the individual stats. And as you guys know, we're going to be going over the attack with non-penalty XG, and then finally going on to the defensive side of things with XG conceded. Now all the following stats have come from Fantasy Football Fix's Opta Stats Sandbox. You guys can go check that out if you guys want to, if you want to go over certain players, that sort of thing, as you would have seen me do in live streams 100%, but right now I'm going to focus on only the teams. Now another reminder that I have also gone per game or per 90 minute stats because we have had blank Game Week 8, so some of these teams haven't featured for 9 games, and therefore it's unfair to judge them over that 9 game period. Now the first stat to talk about is going to be XG non-penalty. Remove the penalties because they're on super consistent. And these are going to be the top 5 teams or highest XG over these opening 9 games, according to the Opta Stats Sandbox. Now the first team, as I always say, no surprise, it's going to be Man City with an XG of 2.32 per game over the opening 9 game weeks. And with fixtures upcoming at Southampton at home, great fixtures. Southampton haven't even kept a clean sheet as far as I know. And Liverpool's defense looks simply terrible. Those Man City attackers still look pretty strong. Now the big thing is going to be that blank Game Week 12 fixture, so if you guys have not prepared for that, I'd start preparing for it. I'd preferably bench your Man City assets, but if you have to, you might be able to take them out for 1 game week. The next team is going to be Liverpool, come in with 2.00 XG, so nice round number there in terms of the Liverpool XG per game. Arsenal up next, hard fixture, you guys will see their defensive form is pretty strong. Man City, terrible game as well, and then West Ham at home, who also haven't been too shabby. Now at least the Liverpool attack is looking slightly better than the defensive department because the defensive department is all over the show. At least the Liverpool attackers are still getting that XG. We then have Arsenal, team that like Man City have had a really strong start to this Premier League season. 1.96 XG per game. Fixtures upcoming, Liverpool at home. Great fixture I guess on grass, on paper. Not the best fixture in the world, but on grass as I mentioned, the Liverpool defense is not looking that great. They then have Leeds away, which in my opinion is also quite a good game. And then also the blank obviously in Game Week 12. Now those Arsenal attackers where my mind is currently at, as I do own a Saka and a Martinelli, and I'm potentially looking to take Saka out, but now looking at these stats, might just be better off keeping Saka against Liverpool and Leeds. We're then going to move on to a team that unfortunately has lost their manager, but still kept up some pretty good form. It's going to be Brighton with 1.87 XG per game. Now we all know that Brighton had a massive start to the season under Graham Potter. Will that continue under the new manager? Who kind of knows, but a good result against Liverpool on the weekend surely will kickstart their season. Now Spurs up next is a tough game. Brentford away though is a very strong one, and Nottingham Forest at home is an even better one, probably one of the best fixtures in the Prem at the moment. So could we see a return of a Trossard or Gross potentially come Game Week 11, because Game Week 10 looks pretty hard. Now the next team is also going to be kind of a new entry, inverted commas, into our kind of top 5. It's going to be Newcastle with an XG of 1.85 per game. Now Newcastle have had some pretty tough games and some easy ones over the opening 9, which only means this is an even more impressive stat. Now Brentford at home is a good game on paper. United away might be a little bit of a tough one. Everton away, although they have conceded a few goals, their XG conceded is pretty high, and that's why that game could also be quite a good one. Now seeing this kind of stat is a little bit disappointing because I was an Isaac owner, transferred him out because of that injury, but if I did still have him, definitely would have kept him because of these great stats. So as you guys can see, the top 5, the top 3 are pretty predictable, but then Brighton and Newcastle showing how good this season has actually been for them. Now, as I always say, with the good, we got to go with the bad. So these are going to be the bottom 5 teams in terms of XG non-penalty. Why I'm going to highlight this is that if you guys do have defenders playing these teams, definitely start them because the clean sheet chances should be quite strong. So the first team is going to be Bournemouth, a side that we actually purchased a player from last week, Solanke. So the striker of the lowest XG non-penalty team we actually purchased. I must have been mental, but that's kind of how FPL is at the end of the day. But at least they have some nice fixtures coming up, which I hope they improve on that XG non-penalty. We then have Wolves, a pretty predictable team. They're struggling to score too many goals this season. 0.89 though, so quite a jump from Bournemouth to Wolves. And with some tough fixtures coming up, except for maybe Game Week 11 against Nottingham Forest, I think they might continue to struggle. However, they have just sacked their manager, so whoever comes in, he might be more of an attacking sided manager. So therefore, Wolves might rebound off this XG. Next up is going to be West Ham with 0.91, but you Jared Bowen owners will be absolutely smiling after, I think he got 14 points in Game Week 9, and with some nice fixtures coming up, Fulham at home, Southampton away, and Liverpool away, I think they should improve this XG. We then have Leicester with 0.97, although they had a great game against Nottingham Forest last night, the XG wasn't actually that high for that game, with a lot of absolute bangers being scored. But they do have Bournemouth away, Crystal Palace at home, and then Leeds at home, great fixtures on paper, so if you don't have Maddison, I would definitely bring him in. And finally, we have Aston Villa with 0.98, Nottingham Forest away, potentially the game of the game week in Game Week 10. Then have Chelsea unfortunately, but Fulham is a very nice fixture as well. So it is a little bit ironic here in terms of Bournemouth, West Ham, Leicester and Aston Villa. All 4 of these teams who could potentially bring their options in, already have their options, and they're on the lowest 5 XG non-penalty scorers in the opening 9 game weeks. We're now going to shift our attention to the defensive part of the stats list, and I'll be going over XG conceded. Now we do have a new entry at the top, so the best defense in the Prem at the moment is going to be Arsenal with 0.75. Now they do have Liverpool at home, Leeds away, those games should be quite tough defensively, but at least in Game Week 12 they won't kind of have any XG negative. So super interesting for me to see here that even though they had the North London derby this weekend, they still managed to put on a good show. No, it was against 10-man Spurs, so that definitely helped, but also the defense has been rock solid this season. Next up, no surprise there, Man City with just a little bit less, 0.76 XG conceded. Southampton at home looks like it could be a clean sheet. Liverpool away could even be a clean sheet. Then they obviously have the blank in Game Week 12. Next up, so on the top 5 attacking and the top 5 defensive is going to be Brighton with 1.01. So as mentioned earlier on, that Spurs fixture will be quite tough, but Brentford and Nottingham Forest could definitely be some attacking returns from a defensive side of things. We then have West Ham, and I'm also going to shout out Wolves here because both these two sides are struggling from an attacking point of view, but definitely have some great defensive stats. So I'm happy as a Kurt Zouma owner because if I do have to start him, looks like a clean sheet could be on the cards for West Ham. Same can be said about Wolves. Both of them have a similar kind of XG conceded 1.04, 1.08 respectively, and they do have some nice figures coming up from a defensive side of things. So these are going to be the top 5 teams in terms of XG conceded to the lowest XG conceded per game over the opening 9 games. But now raising that kind of rating, we're going to go to the worst teams, and the number 1 worst team in terms of XG conceded is going to be Fulham with 2.04. Now they face West Ham away in Game Week 10, so you Bowen owners absolutely lapping up that chance. Bournemouth at home in Game Week 11, and then Aston Villa in Game Week 12. So if you guys want to go for an Ollie Watkins, he could even be an option, but Solanke hopefully will shine in Game Week 11. No surprise on the next one, Nottingham Forest 1.88, so the newly promoted sides here, unfortunately featuring in the worst defenses, but that is slightly predictable. Aston Villa at home, Wolves away and Brighton away, tough games also on paper. Now the next team is a little bit of a surprise, but you guys would have seen this over the Ultimate Guides this season. It's going to be Crystal Palace with 1.76 XG conceded. Now they have had some very tough games over the opening 9, and the fixtures do improve from now till Game Week 16, so hopefully they can rack up some more clean sheets. We then move on to Leicester, a team that's also pretty bad defensively, but if you did start Danny Ward, would have been mighty happy last night. Nottingham Forest clean sheet and a bonus point and an extra save point. His first kind of haul of the season. But 1.69 conceded over the opening 9 games. Bournemouth away is a nice game, Crystal Palace at home and then Leeds at home. Tough games probably from a defensive point of view, so can't see Leicester keeping too many more clean sheets. Now the final team to go over has crept in to our bottom 5 teams. It's going to be Leeds with 1.64, but I do think this was helped on by going down to 10 men early on into the second half against Aston Villa. But they are usually quite a poor defensive side, so this only kind of shows that under the new manager, they still are looking pretty bad, and they're definitely a team to target from an attacking point of view. But this is going to kind of wrap up our stats list or our watch list. The defense, the attacks, as I mentioned, target these options, target the players facing them or defending against them, because hopefully that will lead to some FPL points. Now the next talking point is going to be kind of taken from our feature on the wildcard guide. I genuinely enjoy looking at fixtures, and therefore comment down below if you guys want this to be kind of a regular in the ultimate guides. But what I went and did was I went over to Fantasy Football Fix, went onto their fixture ticker, sorted from the attacking ratings because the attack is usually a little more exciting than the defensive side of things, and I've gone for the next 6 game weeks. So from Game Week 10 to Game Week 15, these are going to be the top 6 teams with the best fixtures from now till then. Now the first team, I kind of mentioned this about Ollie Watkins, it's going to be Aston Villa, as they have a very nice run against newly promoted sides over the next 3. So Nottingham Forest away and then Fulham away, both games look pretty strong from an attacking side of things, and therefore if you guys can predict who's going to start, might be Ollie Watkins, might be Coutinho, I definitely might look at them to bring them in. After that, they do have Brentford at home, relatively fine game, but then Newcastle and United, this might be more of a short-term punt. The next team is super popular from a budget point of view. It's going to be Bournemouth. Solanke is a nice option at 5.7 million, relatively cheap, and that's probably the only player I would touch out of them, even though the defensive players have actually been getting a few clean sheets. The next team is going to be West Ham, and if you guys don't know, Jared Bowen could be an option to bring in. It's a nice fixtures coming up even up until Game Week 16, so they could be quite a nice popular option to bring in. The next team, Crystal Palace, we've mentioned them in depth about kind of their great fixture run from Game Week 10 to Game Week 16, so Wilfred Zaha, maybe even a defender, could be on your radar. We then have Leeds with finally some nice fixtures coming their way. However, I don't really think too many other options are going to be on my radar, except for maybe a Rodrigo, as he had some nice form over the opening couple game weeks. But when you do kind of look at their fixtures, great fixtures on paper, 1 or 2 hit or miss fixtures, but even Liverpool have been defending pretty badly. Then the final team will be Everton, but I consider them to be more of a Game Week 12 onwards sort of punt. United at home is a tough game, Spurs away is also a tough game, but after that, the fixtures look pretty spectacular. Now there have been some teams here that I haven't really mentioned, the Leicester options, that sort of thing. They have some great fixtures from now till about Game Week 13, then after that get a little bit tougher, so that's why they haven't been featured here in terms of fantasy football fix. But don't worry, there's a couple of teams that I haven't mentioned here that have also great fixtures, but these are definitely some of the teams with the best ones. Comment down below if there's a team that I've missed, if you think there's a team that should be on this list. Always like to see your guys' opinions. Now the next talking point to go over is going to be one that's kind of close to my heart as a Liverpool fan. It's going to be the Liverpool asset. Should you bring them in? Should you sell them? Or should you actually avoid them? Now in terms of Liverpool, there's going to be kind of 2 options I want to address here. It's going to be Trent and it's also going to be Mo Salah, because these 2 are the most highly owned. Obviously Luis Diaz could come into the account. Robertson, if he's back from injury, could also be on the radar. But I don't think most FPL managers will go for Trent and or Salah. So let's start off with Trent. Last week in the Ultimate Guide I mentioned that I'd probably go for Trent over Salah, but that debate might have actually changed at the current moment because Liverpool's defense is all over the place. I generally thought that they might struggle from an attacking point of view. The defense is still going to be quite involved and Trent is always going to be involved in those attacks. But I just think that you can't bring in any of these Liverpool assets at the current moment. If you have them, I would just keep them, but if you're going to bring them in, I'd probably avoid for the next 2 and then focus on Game Week 12 onwards. So I think that's what I'm going to do. As a KDB owner, I don't own Salah, I don't own Trent. I think I'm going to give them Arsenal and Man City, see if they rebound from this bad form, then come Game Week 12 with 1 or 2 free transfers, I can bring them straight back into my side for those lovely fixtures. But if you guys do own Salah, should you keep him, should you sell him? I would probably just keep him, give him the next 2. He hasn't been underperforming Kevin De Bruyne that much. When you consider that Game Week 12 blank, you want him anyways for Game Week 12 probably. But you guys also can take the risk though if you don't think Liverpool will rebound from this bad form. If you think even though they have nice fixtures from Game Week 12 onwards, you want to captain Haaland anyways, then you can sell Salah this game week. I would probably go for KDB or Heung-min Son. But if I had him in my own team, I probably would just keep him and see how the future goes. I do think Trent though might be a different debate. If you guys do want to ship him out, I can understand why, but I would also heed caution there in terms of the more premium defenders. Cancelo's not performing at the current moment, Reece James isn't as well, so I would just probably keep Trent as well and then just see how it goes over these next 2. Now I do understand that Liverpool aren't looking great at the current moment, but this might be one of those things where they're playing the better opposition, Arsenal, Man City, they might raise their game slightly. I know it might be hard to believe at the current moment and I will believe it when I see it, but that's almost my prediction hopefully for the next 2 game weeks. So to kind of wrap it up, if you guys don't own Trent, don't own Salah, I wouldn't bring them in. I'd give them the next 2 up until Game Week 12, then we can reassess. If you guys own them, I probably would just stick with them. I'd write out the next 2 fixtures, hopefully they tick along quite nicely, and then reassess come Game Week 12. But you guys might have a completely different debate. If you own Salah, you might want to move him to KDB. I can understand that move. I just think over the next 3 that Salah might keep track with Kevin De Bruyne, as KDB hasn't exactly been that explosive. Mentioned earlier on about the premium defenders that Trent is kind of keeping up with the Reece James and a Cancelo, and I do understand that he is more expensive, but over the next 3, who kind of knows, maybe he goes and scores a goal or gets an assist. Now the final talking point to go over is going to be all about captaincy, Haaland. No, but in all seriousness, I just think that Haaland's the number 1 option to go for against Southampton at home. No excuse. The only thing that might sway me off him is that if he does get kind of injured in the Champions League, that's probably the only thing that's not going to make me captain Haaland, is that if he breaks his leg in the Champions League or that sort of thing. But I will be monitoring his minutes and hopefully they'll get managed tonight against Copenhagen. Now I did mention this in the transfer plan a couple of days ago, but I can understand the frustration about kind of perma-captaining Haaland. But what I will say is that although not in Game Week 12, in Game Week 11 and onwards, you might also go for differential captain, and that's maybe the best way to actually make up points. But we'll leave that debate for another day because I don't think in Game Week 10 I'm going to be going off Haaland just because it is Southampton at home, great fixture on paper, and he's in great form. But do comment down below, if you are a Maverick manager, comment down below who you guys are going for, as I do think practically everyone in FPL will captain Haaland this game week. But this is basically a wrap up of the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for the team selection tomorrow, as well as the deadline stream on Saturday, 1 hour before the deadline. But I'm signing off from Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers, bye.